Hey everyone, welcome to this new art channel I've created. I primarily want this channel to be focused on my art creation process. I'm trying to improve my digital art skills, but I did realize that making large graphics or illustrations every single week wasn't really feasible. It was burning me out a little bit. So I decided to start a series of playlists where I don't make full-blown graphics. Instead, I focus on sketches or simpler illustrations to just get my practice in and not get burned out. So the aim of these videos is not to create a tutorial. I don't feel like I'm qualified to create a tutorial. Regardless, I started digital art or just working with the Adobe Creative Suite about a year ago and consistently used it for projects and work and commissions, but I'm still learning a lot and I see a lot of cool process videos online that I want to learn some new skills and hopefully integrate it into my workflow. But for this playlist specifically, I might call it sketch to screen, I'm not sure yet. But the idea behind it is I'll do a real life sketch. So I'll grab an object from the apartment. In this case, it's the Seattle Cup. And I'll sketch it in a journal. I'll try and add something to it that's from my memory that no reference photo. I'm not seeing it in real life, to practice merging real life drawing skills, so I'm not tracing, which is a really bad habit I get into with Adobe Illustrator, along with trying to project what I want something to look like onto the page, which I'm sure everybody knows that always doesn't turn out how you want it to. So for this particular video, I actually ran into a technical issue. I was recording with an old phone, a phone I've had for around 5 years. And while it was recording the video that you're watching right now, it stopped recording in the middle. So I don't have the process for this entire sketch, just the first around 5 minutes for it. But I'm expecting a new phone to come, I want to say Wednesday or Thursday. It's going to be a Google Pixel 4. I'm really excited for that. And of course, I don't think that'll have as many limitations either on storage or recording time. I'm not exactly sure what caused the video to cut off, so I'll look into troubleshooting that. But for this particular sketch, you won't get to see it because I think the video cut off before it got to that section. But I tried adding a frog to the front of the cup, just kind of hanging over the lip. And once you see the picture pulled up in Illustrator, you'll see that I erased it because I was having a hard time remembering what that would look like. So instead I went for a frog on the arm of the cup, and that one looked a lot better. I don't know if it was the perspective or the body anatomy just seemed more accurate than the face. But let's go ahead and move into Illustrator and go from there. So with Adobe Illustrator, I usually use a 1080 by 1080 canvas, and that's just because that's the size that's good for posting to Instagram. I usually have 2 canvases up. You can see for the one on the left, that's where I put my color swatches. But for this sketch series, since I'm trying to keep things quick and simple, I'm trying to limit myself for the number of shades and tints and hues for the color palette. You can see I got my basic shapes drawn out, and I was messing with the mesh tool, as you can see. I'm really unfamiliar with it. I saw it on a Illustrator tutorial online, and it worked for more of the end process of my illustrations. I used it on a recent post. It was a cactus illustration I had made on my Instagram, so applying it to the body of the cup and trying to use it a lot. But the look of gradients I found they're very temperamental, right? Because gradients, it's really easy, if they're not subtle enough, it's really easy to make, in my opinion, your illustrations look cheesy or just not really well refined. So after a while, I decided I'd go back to my usual strategy where I don't use gradients. I just block out sections of color first, which is happening now on the body of the cup. And a lot of times I find that my initial color palette I set out is too varied between swatches. So I'll often go in and sample one color, and then instead of using the next color swatch, I'll just tweak it very slightly on the color picker. Now that might be different depending on if I'm doing something like this drawing where it was from life and I don't have a reference photo to sample from. I think when working with reference photos, it's a lot easier to get your swatches out at the very beginning and color pick them. So that might vary just depending on the strategy that I'm using at the time. So at this part, I was starting to put the pins into the cup. I think this is the part that really exposes me to my lack of common sense with color. It's really difficult for me to work with realistic colors. I tried to avoid it a lot in high school when I was taking my AP Studio art drawing course. They're just very intimidating, and there's a big range, and mixing colors in real life with paint or with Prismacolors is very different from online color picking. I guess in some ways online or digital color picking is easier. You can literally sample an image, but it's just something that I need to get more practice on, which is partially what the series is for. So oftentimes after getting an initial block shape out, I'll readjust it on the canvas. And as I was making this frog here, this was the hardest part because I had to think of what shading would look like on a frog. And as cute as they are, I don't really look at frogs very often, at least not at that level of detail. So there's a lot of parts about the frog in particular that I wasn't happy with or satisfied with, but I tried to let it go. I tried not to get too much into detail, tweak it too long, because the digital portion of this creation was already running up against 2 hours. And I wanted these to be something that I could do in one day, at least the creation of the illustration portion. So there's going to be a lot of flaws, but the goal is more to have a larger number of iterations and not these perfect illustrations. I'm trying to release myself from tweaking for hours and hours and hours, and trying to resist the temptation to get a reference photo. Anyways, after I finish doing all the color blocking, I usually put overlays of gradients, and they're pretty opaque, so I don't want it to come on too strong. Usually it's for color or intensity correction. And I usually use overlay or color burn, but sometimes I use the other settings whenever necessary. But that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you haven't seen my Instagram at lunaceros.art, that's where I talk about a lot of my past works, so you can see that cactus up front. And I'll be adding this frog soon, so that's just another place that you can track my progress. Thanks for watching.